So it's been about a month since I've last posted, but it's been a crazy couple of weeks. For those who are new here, I have cerebral palsy, inattentive ADHD, major depressive disorder, and generalized anxiety disorder. Um, this is going to be more of a life update, and after this video, I'm going to do a medication update. If you've been following my journey to become a speech and language pathologist, you know how hard I worked to keep my undergraduate grades when I was working on my bachelor's degree close to a 4.0. I graduated with a 3.8. You know how hard I worked to get into graduate school because it's very, very competitive, particularly in California. It's been compared to getting into medical school, getting into speech and language pathology graduate school. So I applied to a total of 6 programs. I went to the interviews, I worked on my personal statement, I got my letters of recommendation, I paid the fees, all of that. And I got into 2 universities this past August, and I opted for an online part-time program because I figured that would help me balance my life as a mom and a part-time reading specialist better. And I'm not going to get too much into detail, but as of late, we were struggling financially, so I started looking for a full-time job. California is one of those states that is in desperate need of SLPs, or speech and language pathologists, especially in the schools. So sometimes you have schools who are looking to fill a vacant spot for an SLP, and if nobody applies, they are willing to hire graduate students such as myself who haven't yet completed their master's program or haven't received their certification. So I found one of those jobs on the information. On the job information, it said graduate students were welcome to apply. So I went ahead and I applied, and it is a full-time job. And I will be commuting between 2 campuses. So I will be in one campus for 3 days and in another campus for 2 days. And I interviewed and I got the job, and it took about 3 months for them to get me approved by the CTC because they had to request a waiver on my behalf because I don't have my credentials yet or my master's degree. So they have to request a waiver, and the waiver has to be approved before I can start working. So that took a while. So officially, I started working as a speech language pathologist in the schools December 9th. And coincidentally, that was also the last week of the semester in my graduate program. The last week of this first semester that I was working on. And if you've been following my videos, you know that I'm very much introverted, that I have social anxiety, that I have major confidence issues and imposter syndrome and all of that. So this was my first time actually working a full-time 9-to-5 job where I have to be around other people and act like a professional, right? And not to mention that I haven't even gotten to the part in my graduate program where they teach us about working with kids and treating speech sound disorders and language disorders in kids, because I'm barely in my first semester, and we've only covered working with adults so far. So I just kind of threw myself into the school setting, knowing virtually nothing about working with kids who have speech and language disorders, other than the very little information that I did gain about it in my undergraduate program. But I really have no hands-on training as a school SLP, so I knew that it was going to be something that I just have to learn as I go, right? So yeah, that first week was extremely exhausting for me. And then to top it off, I stopped taking qelbree because, as I mentioned in previous videos, it was making me extremely fatigued. And I wanted to run it by my provider before I stopped, but as usual, she's fully booked. So combine that with it being my first week of work, and I'm feeling all this anxiety and like a total imposter. And by the time I'm home after that 8-hour work week, I am exhausted. I didn't manage my time very well. I didn't study for finals very much that last week, which resulted in me not doing so well in one of my finals. Out of the 4 classes that I was taking this semester, I ended up not doing so well on one of the finals, where that class I had a B, but after the final it dropped from about an 80% to a 75%, which is a C, which in graduate school is not passing. Anything below a B is failing. I was devastated. I got an email from my professor, who also coincidentally happens to be my academic advisor, letting me know that I didn't pass the class. And then I got an email from the university program's director, letting me know that I had to meet with her next week, next Wednesday, so that we could discuss what the next course of action is. But according to their academic policy, which she did point out a couple of quotes from the student handbook, since I didn't pass the class, I can't move forward with the program and take the next semester until I pass that specific class, which apparently isn't offered again until next fall. So it looks like that class isn't offered. It's only offered once a year. So because of that, they're making me take essentially a forced leave of absence from the program for this coming up spring semester and for summer semester. So I'll be falling behind 2 semesters because I didn't do well in that one class. And in this specific master's program, you're with a cohort, right? So you start off with one group of people, and you go through the entire 2 or 3 year program with that same group of people taking the same classes. And apparently, because I didn't do well in that class, I will no longer be a part of that cohort. They're going to have to put me in a different cohort when I am admitted back into the program come August of next year. It's devastating in and of itself because I also have major social anxiety, and it took me a while to get used to my cohort, and I grew fond of the people in the cohort. So to know that I'm no longer going to be a part of that group really sucks. So yeah, that in a nutshell, I truly believe has a lot to do with my ADHD, because impulsivity is a symptom of ADHD, and I believe that even though I felt like getting a full-time job at the time was a necessity because of our financial situation, looking back at it now, I do believe that it was impulsive for me to jump into that job, knowing full well that I was taking these very rigorous academic courses. Another thing is the executive function piece of the ADHD, right? Because I can't get organized, because I can't keep track of time. I didn't take the time that I needed to study so that I could do well enough on the final. Now, I take full responsibility for my actions. I don't want to blame this entirely on my conditions, but I will say that I definitely feel that my symptoms were exacerbated by the level of stress and anxiety that I was experiencing at the time, and by having to come off of my medication because of how tired it was making me. Yeah, so I'll be meeting with the director next week, and we'll see where we go from here.